Okay, so with the sore throat and immense pleasure, this is the Dead IT Show. This is Vedran, I'm Yasmin, and today we are going to talk about updates. The thing that probably most of the users hate the most, since they tend to pop up in the exact time when you need your computer the most. So stay with us after the intro to see what do we think about updates, when to do them, if to do them, and what to keep an eye on. Please roll the intro.
I'm sensing that you have a bear in your belly.
Yes, the problem is that I have been under the weather for the last couple of days, as you can probably hear. Somebody is going to be vicious in the comments and say that this should be my regular voice, but frankly, I don't care.
You think?
Yes, so people like baritones, so this
Lower registers.
lower registers that are currently running in my throat are something that I'm not used to. But anyways, let's talk about updates.
No, let's talk about baritones for a second.
Okay?
I like them as well, especially when you're female delivered.
Okay. So don't pick up on me now. We are doing we are in business.
Who, me? Never.
We are doing the business now.
Okay.
Okay. So let's talk about updates. This was your idea, but I have a few bones to pick before we start.
Go ahead. I'm going to drink my coffee.
I'm just going to go with what do you think kind of question. And this is going to involve me asking you, do you think that Linux has, I would say, caught up with Windows in the way it does updates and the way that it annoys people when the updates need to be done? Because I have seen it all. I have seen the update screen before you can log in. I have seen the screen on Linux for updates after you log out and try to restart your computer. And this is something that I obviously expected only from Windows. I wasn't expecting that I'm going to see the please wait updates are being applied on Linux.
You know what I think? I think that's the part of the whole Linux going to rule the desktop future episode, which is not existent as the Linux on desktop.
But there is another theme that we should be doing probably later, and this is how much stuff about what your computer is doing do you actually need to know. People who like Linux tend to leave basically the console log running. So you can see at any given moment what your computer is running. You can see the boot procedure, you can see the initialization of everything in the system and so on. The problem with Windows is that they have the same thing happening, but they're trying to mask it. I know that Red Hat is showing you a loading screen without showing you the log, unless you wanted to.
Yeah, with the arrow key.
Yes, and is this the thing that we should be doing? Because where do you draw the line for the user not to get bored, but to have some sort of feedback to the user that says, okay, I'm updating something and doing something?
First and foremost, I generally agree with what you said, with a couple of additions. The way in which the policy towards IT updates on desktop and server computers changed over the course of the past 10 years is, I think, annoying at best. We used to have, first and foremost, we used to have, in the good old days, I think, software that was quite a bit more tested, quite a bit more reliable.
And mature.
Much more mature. And actually, there is an episode with one of the Microsoft programmers that worked on Windows for many, many years with one other Microsoft guy on YouTube, which I checked a couple of snippets from, and he basically says what amounts to the same thing, especially when they were switching from old code to 64-bit code and everything else. But the way in which the updates used to work was completely non-compulsory. You could have done it, you could have switched off from that, you could have done a lot of things to kind of avoid doing them if you wanted to, but either way, there weren't all that many updates. Actually, I would argue that some of the older operating systems on Microsoft part and on Linux as well, if you wanted to do an update, you installed a new version or something like that. Windows 98, 98 second edition, 95, 95 OSR2, stuff like that. But then it became, for some reason, it became a race to become more and more annoying. Maybe it's because of the verbosity. Maybe the operating system and the vendors of the operating systems want to let us know that they're actually working on something, doing something, improving things or whatnot. I don't know. It's difficult to, look into that crystal ball. But as a side effect of that, they only became, over the years, more and more annoying with the update policies. Some of these things we kind of hinted at in some of the previous episodes as well. But for me, and I will share a couple of very annoying experiences that happened to me over the course of the past 7 or 8 years, ranging from Windows 7 to 8.1 to 10 to 11 on various business machines in the company that we work for. And generally speaking, the latest round of settings or normal IT procedures, which basically involve that your OS updates almost as frequently as it wants to, is one of the most annoying and, I don't know how to say it, hostile things that the OS vendors or OS manufacturers have done for the end customers. And the fact that they had to correct the way in which that works, to add update delays and whatnot, for example, that we have in Windows, just further proves the point that this is not necessary and it's not the correct way to do things. In terms of Linux, generally speaking, I think that a lot of stuff that's been happening on the Linux market from the perspective of updates is kind of starting to mimic what's happening on the Microsoft market as well. And for me, it's absolutely unacceptable that, for example, in our classes, we do a class. Tomorrow morning, you log in back to the virtual machine, which you intentionally left powered on because we have our part of the infrastructure and we can do that. And you come back in, you log in, and you see that something that you left on the screen is not there, no longer there because the machine was rebooted. For me, that was a new and very, very disconcerting experience with CentOS 9. I don't remember if it happened.
It is CentOS 9 and Stream, and the updates that are basically disturbing your whole educational process.
Yeah.
Because we must talk about the updates in that context. I'm going to go through this one because this was the most recent one and the most annoying one. Mm-hmm. And the reason is we are trying to get our students to use CentOS. The reason is simple. We are preparing them from the Red Hat exams, certification and exams, and we want them to experience the system that is as close to production level Red Hat Enterprise Linux as possible. Mm-hmm. But I think that CentOS 9 Stream is probably the furthest apart from from the production set possible, because because when we try to install a particular, in this particular case it was Ovid, but when we're trying to install it, I managed to install it on Tuesday. On Wednesday morning it didn't work. The installation didn't work because of the update. Mm-hmm. The keys were wrong. The repositories were wrong. So the keys were wrong. Basically, the hashes of the files were wrong, and this was one of the moments when you start to realize that your process is directly influenced by somebody else's process mm-hmm. in a way that completely stops you from doing your work. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those things that the update should never do. They should be an update, but update meaning it is going to work. There shouldn't be a moment where the system is not working because something is updating on the server that is updating you. So we have come to a meta update moment.
Mesh updates.
Yes, but let's split them updates.
Actually, to further your point, I don't know if you forgot, but we didn't do this course last year. because it was an elective course and it wasn't elected by the students. But we did do it 2 years ago.
Yes.
Same thing happened on the exam.
Same thing happened on the exam, but now same thing is happening every week, and this is a
And
problem.
it's unacceptable for this to happen on the exam.
Yes, yes, and the other problem is that it is happening on the weekly basis, and the only thing we can do is to freeze the repositories and to basically freeze the versions of the packages and to say to the students that they are not allowed to use the other packages from other repositories, and this is going to break things. But let's now leave this aside and let's just try to talk about the updates in general. Let's try to divide them into 3 different groups.
Okay.
So what I consider an update would be a security update.
Okay.
So when we were doing the Windows 7, Windows XP, most of the updates were strictly security updates, or the changes that fixed some sort of a crash or some sort of a problem inside the application.
Okay.
Then along came feature updates. Feature updates are there not to fix something that is wrong, but to give you another feature or to remove the feature that is already there. Usually when Microsoft is doing something to do both in a particular application. And there is third version of the updates that is there to do a major revision of the application or the operating system. And this is what could be considered a major upgrade. So I would think that what we used to have were major upgrades and then security updates and bug updates, basically. So patches for the bugs. And now the feature updates became a thing, and they are creating the most of the problem. Because you are going to apply the security updates. They're not going to stand in your way. Sometimes a reboot is necessary, but that's it. But
I'm very happy about that.
yes, but the reboots can be scheduled and the security updates can be scheduled. But I don't see any reason why my system should be rebooted because somebody decided to change the start menu on the start menu button. Or Microsoft decided to create the 17th installation of the search engine that is not going to work, but they're going to try anyway. So my biggest gripe is with feature updates because I don't want them. I want my system to be at the particular version, and then if I want to update to another version that has a given set of features, I want to be able to choose this update. And with Windows 10 having a basically rolling update every half a year with big feature releases, we are suddenly stuck with the version of the system that is going to re-update itself or rediscover itself with different features every 6 months or so. You're going to have another release that is Windows 11, which compares to Windows 10 in I don't know what way. I know the idea behind the kernel comparison, but the rest of it, I don't really know. And then Windows 12 was, it wasn't announced, but it was...
there were some shushes.
Somebody said that it is possibly that Windows 12 is already in the works. And so we have updates, major updates, we have feature updates, we have security updates, we have application updates. Suddenly everything is updating everything. And I think that the biggest problem is that we have come to a point where people consider applications as something that needs to be changed every day. And this is on Linux, this was normal, but you were expecting it. On Windows, you don't expect this, but it happens.
Yeah, but the difference is that in Linux, you don't have to reboot anything.
And you can elect to update a particular thing. You can always stop the updates. You can always deny updates for a particular feature or particular application. For example, the kernel. You can exclude the kernel from updating.
Blacklist.
You can basically blacklist whatever packages you want to blacklist, and they're going to stop applications that depend on them from updating, and this is going to be fine. Windows does not allow you to do this. This is the opaqueness that I don't like. This is the main reason why I like Linux. Windows has the opaqueness of not showing you what is happening during the boot, not showing you what is happening during the update, not showing you what is happening during the shutdown, and these are the things that I want to know about. And also, I cannot choose what is going to happen.
Okay. That to me sounds like you summed it up rather well. I have nothing to add. I mean, I will add some examples of this, but I do have a solution for your problem.
Okay.
You're going to like it a lot.
Yes.
It's called Windows 8.1.
Okay.
That's it. No explanation necessary.
So stuck in the Middle Earth
Stuck in
with
the moment
orcs.
stuck in the moment that you just can't get out of. Yes.
Yes, with orcs.
No, with you too.
No, but the problem is that
That's exactly why I still have Windows 8.1 on one of my laptops.
I say that I'm pretty happy with Windows 11.
Because you're lame.
No, it's not because I'm lame. Because I just stopped caring. This is the same reason.
This is the guy who installs Windows 11 after making Windows 10 work, and then Windows 11 makes a mess of everything. The camera, the sound, the keyboard, the Bluetooth, the wireless, the network, and he still persists on beta testing things.
Yes, but somebody
alpha testing things.
Somebody has to
Correct myself.
test it because Microsoft is not going to do it.
Exactly, which is one of my points, and I made it a couple of minutes ago. I do really resent Microsoft for that, because there were a lot of rumors years ago when they started working on Windows 2012, I think, or something like that, on server side, and Windows 10 on the client side. There were a lot of rumors about them, dismissing most or all of their QA, quality assurance, and beta testers and testers people. And actually, when I looked at this episode, I'm going to post a link in the chat box to a list of these additional videos that I checked yesterday. I mean, this is a guy who led Windows development. He's not just some left-hand guy from the street. He basically says what amounts to the same thing. They decided that they're not going to make software that is as thoroughly tested as it used to be. And that, for me, he said he's worse than me. He says, for me, any kind of software that we release, which is not 100% ready and without bugs, I don't want to release it. That's the, let's say, exceptionally high bar to meet. I would have no problem if you had some smaller issues with, I don't know, Solitaire, to be kind of stupid. But I agree with his general approach.
But I do agree with his general approach, but on the other hand, the idea that you are proposing here is simply unobtainable with today's operating systems.
Why?
If they want to push feature updates, so they want to push basically small incremental feature changes in particular application, there is no way for them to test all the combinations of all the applications and all the hardware environments.
I know that I'm going to sound like a broken record, but that's not your or my problem.
Yes, but this is not feasible in the way that they are doing business. And this is one of those things that he's basically saying that Microsoft shouldn't be doing Windows this way. This means Microsoft shouldn't be doing business this way.
Correct.
Because right now, do you know which version of Office you're running on your PC?
Yeah, Microsoft 365 version of Office.
Okay, which version is this?
I don't know, 2019 plus something.
It's 221 but plus something. But
yeah, whatever.
It's a different version every day. Basically, it ggets changed every day. It gets updated with the updates. So, for instance, you have some features that other people don't have because you're using Office 365. There wasn't any announcement of new features coming in. You just see the new feature on the menu and you can choose it. This is fine as long as I have some sort of control over it, because I want to be able to use a version that is running. You know that feeling when you have an application and suddenly starts crashing, and then you
Excel is doing a lot of weird things for me lately, actually.
And then you perform an update and suddenly the application is working again.
Like Outlook.
Yes, this is one of those things that I don't want to see. I want to be able to say when the application has been updated, and then to see if this crashes it. I want to be able to roll the update back, not just wait for something to happen.
Easily doable on Linux, by the way.
Yes, and I would not wait for something to happen, and then in an indeterminate moment in the future to have an application that is going to work when somebody decided to fix something. So this is completely automatic control. It's not that I'm a control freak, but if an application is something that I use every day, I don't want to depend on other people to fix it before I can use it again.
Okay, so just to kind of explain, I'm talking about Dave's Garage YouTube channel, and in the past couple of days, he released 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 5. It's going to be more videos with Dave Cutler, who used to basically lead Windows Server / client development, and people should really listen to this because it's very interesting to kind of like learn the thought process of an old school guy working from the old school perspective of nothing gets released until it's really ready, which is, yes, I know, significant business change for anybody today, but I still think that no matter what, it is the only business model that should be applied to
But the
operating
business model,
systems.
that business model can actually succeed. That business model needs just a little tweak, and this tweak is let's take Windows apart and let's make Windows modules, the modules that we can actually update independently.
Yeah.
And then if we do that, we are going to completely avoid the necessity of updating, for example, the kernel, because you have a bug in your latest version of Edge. So the process that people asked Microsoft to do decades ago, in the antitrust case and so on, should be finished. It should be mandatory for a company, if the company doesn't want to do it themselves, to decouple the operating system from the applications.
Oh, I agree.
And then you would just say, okay, I want updates for Outlook and Office and kernel. I don't want updates for Notepad, calculator, and Edge.
While we're on the topic of that, do you see how the history is repeating itself?
Yes.
So 20 years ago, we had the Internet Explorer trust case. Nowadays, nobody's talking about the fact that Edge is mandatory and you cannot really use Internet Explorer anymore and whatnot.
Or that funny setting in Outlook that says, how do you want to open your web pages from the emails? Do you want to use the Edge or the default browser?
Yeah.
So basically, suddenly you have the default browser for Outlook that is not the default browser for the Windows, because Microsoft doesn't like you setting your own default browser.
Yeah. And actually, I also, while we're on the topic of feature updates or downgrades, I think I saw some announcement that Microsoft is going to remove WordPad.
I can see this happening because nobody's using it.
Who says nobody's using it?
Microsoft is.
Okay, so not you and me. Okay.
And yesterday I had the exercise when I was trying to do something, and a student of ours wasn't managing to start Word on the local computer. And I told him, just use WordPad. And he said, what's this? And we were explaining to him what WordPad was. So I think that Microsoft is using the data from the different telemetry things,
Telemetry.
and they are trying to, and they accomplished the idea of removing features that people are not using. Not they're not wanting them, but they're not using them.
Okay.
To be completely honest, when was the last time you used WordPad?
Today. I
Okay.
use it every single day.
Because I either use Notepad, or I use and install Notepad++, or I use some Office application. I never use WordPad.
Yeah, I use it a lot. There are a couple of reasons why, because things that I can do in WordPad are much more advanced than what I can do in Notepad. Notepad
Yes.
is basically your, let's say, less than text version of a text editor. That's what it is.
Yes. Okay. So decoupling the applications from the operating system would be a nice thing to do.
Yeah, going back to the way in which it used to be.
But what we are seeing right now is that instead of this happening to Windows, Linux is starting to do the bundles,
other way,
bundles even more.
Yeah.
And these distributions that contain 9 gigabytes of installation files are something that Linux should be ashamed of, basically.
Okay, that's a harsh statement. Why?
Because
against the idea of open source or something
no, it's
else?
not against the idea of open source. It's just against the idea of what people are used to getting from Linux. Creating a different distribution for every different usage scenario, and then creating a bundle of applications that need to be installed on this particular usage scenario without the user choosing it. I think it's, at the same time, it's an okay idea, but I don't think it should be done. For example, Kali Linux. It's an amazing distribution designed specifically for security and for pen testing and so on. It has an enormous amount of applications installed. But I think that it could have been done in a way that you have a base distribution and then you decide which applications you need. Because you're installing a lot of tools that you are not going to ever use because you don't know how to use them.
But most people, Kali might not be the best example, although I agree with what you're saying, because Kali is usually booted from ISO and that's it.
Yes, but the Kali is the example that I wanted to choose because this is one of the most tightly integrated distributions that I have ever seen, and it is one of the most beautiful distributions that I have ever seen in the last version. Because the beauty is not in the design. The beauty is in the bundling and the interconnectedness of applications. So, for example, if I have a particular USB network card or something that I want to use, it is going to be supported in Kali even though it's not supported in other Linux distributions. So they decided to do a lot of things in an immensely good way, but at the same time we have a problem because this is the right execution of the wrong idea.
Okay.
It has its own merits. You want to use the ISO, you don't want to download anything, you don't want to be connected to the internet. I know why. But okay, let's now talk about any version of Ubuntu, or Kubuntu, or Lubuntu, or Zubuntu,
or
whatever.
Everything exclamation mark.
Asterisk Ubuntu. This is one of those problems. Why not have a menu that is going to say, okay, you are going to distribution for what? The same menu that Microsoft has started applying on Windows.
Okay.
So this can also be a solution to a problem.
Can I have a small rant?
Yes.
Can I quote Stephen Fry for a second? Can I start a leverette here, as he says in one of his famous, a bit of Fry and Laurie sketches?
You should be forbidden from watching Fry and Laurie, but then yes.
Why? Best humor ever.
Yes, and this is one of the reasons why. Yes?
Yeah, because it's denied by the current environment and surroundings. I don't care. My beef with what you said, although I understand the context in which you said it, but work with me on this one. You said you don't necessarily care about, you said that the beauty is not in the design, okay? But in the functionality, basically, how it's applied. I would like to extend the discussion and offer my, let's say, resentment and my approval to two types of companies related to the UI design, whatever the UI is. Is it Windows or some kind of web application or whatnot? And I mentioned this in a couple of previous episodes, but I never expanded on it. Specifically, and I had a big discussion with our students yesterday about this because I was giving them a 2.5 hour demo of how to do basic operations in Azure, Microsoft Azure. And I did it first from the CLI perspective for an hour and 45 minutes or so. And then I switched to GUI. And basically, I explained to them that the way in which the GUI is getting used there is far from being something that's user-friendly.
Okay.
To add to that, we had a very humoristic discussion in our private, WhatsApp group today about the design of our internal website that we use for education with the new look and design, because that heavily reminds me of OpenStack Horizon, and that's not the way in which you want your web app to look. You know what I'm talking about. Our IE thingy that we.
I'm actively trying to not say anything.
Okay.
Not saying anything. I'm just going to go and quickly explain to the listeners. Basically, you have an application that is 20 years out of touch with reality, and then you put the main functionality of it in a frame, and then you frame it around it with the UI that can be considered something from the 2000s. So
and that's a finished product, or what we call half-baked product from the past.
So basically, you take a half a functional product, and then you put half of a user interface around it, without any regards to mobile compatibility,
functionality,
usefulness, and different things. At the same time, you remove some of the features that are what
Used to be in certain places where
yes,
it was
yes,
logical.
yes.
Yeah, okay. So going back to what I was saying, I am with as years are have gone by, we have a very, let's say, it's not a soft spot. It's more of a professional. We got used to it spot for CLI. For us, CLI is the default thing, so it's good because we have gazillion of hours of working in CLI. But unlike you, for example, and this is our major difference, I like using UIs, but only one type of UIs. You know about this, which is UIs that have been designed well from the operational perspective, which means they're functional, they're easy to use. Not for me, for most of the customers. But the second part of that, and this is where we differ, because you like functional design of UI as well. I know that. But I react very strongly to a poorly designed web application or any application from a design perspective, from the look and feel perspective, which is what you don't necessarily react to, which is okay as well. I am very, yeah, I know. I'm very, very particular about the look and feel of any application or device or whatever. Very, very sensitive to that for some reason. And I haven't been like that. So we've gone in opposite directions.
I have an idea what happened to you.
Okay.
The bipolar disorder that the VMware pushed on you by using two separate applications with wildly different UIs on wildly different platforms for the same purpose, but at the same time not having the exact same features.
That was many years ago, so yeah.
Yes, but I think that this permanently scarred you.
No.
And then after this, you came, Microsoft came into view and started changing things under your feet.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly you don't feel safe. You're not in your safe place. You need to
hit yourself on the head so that I don't have to. Let's not resort to physical violence because that's where it's going to end up. You're correct in your assumption about VMware, partially. They haven't scarred me at all. Most people using VMware-based products don't
remember this anymore.
Yeah, it was years ago, and most of us don't remember. And actually. And this is a point that I made yesterday as well with my students. The latest 3 generations of VMware UIs for the virtualization environments are not amongst the best designed UIs. They are the best designs. One, like the oldest one is a little bit less of a perfect. The middle one is more perfect. The latest one is just freaking amazing how it looks. The icons, the colors, the visibility of information, the summary screens, all of the operational things which are logically placed, whatnot. Yeah, now it's not about VMware. It's what VMware UI is as a metaphor for me, which is the two things that I explained. Operationally speaking, very easy to use for anybody. I can say that because I'm teaching people how to use those. Actually, I have a class this week, and people tell me that as well. But on the other hand, the UI is so beautiful to look at because it's very well designed from just a graphical perspective with richness of colors and all of the icons. And for example, when you do a snapshot, you have a play button for the VM with a snapshot on powered on VM. There's so many visual cues there that you do not see anywhere else in any UIs by any company. Now, nobody bar VMware, does these things. And that's exactly my point. If you design a UI, make it a good one, at least functionally. Let it be something that's usable for an average user.
Okay, what do you think about Windows Phone?
Windows Phone.
Yes.
Oh, going back to that.
That particular place in time and space when Windows 8.0 and then 8.1 had the same-ish interface as the Windows Phone was intended to be.
For me, again, and I said this in one of the previous episodes, it is the most elegant design that I've seen on mobile phones, bar none. And function-wise, I would say that it was hugely functional, although you might argue that there were a couple of things in both iOS and Android OSs that were a little bit more useful, let's say, useful for the average user without trying to search for some things which were not placed correctly in the submenus and whatnot.
But I think
But the UX design of Windows Phone 7, 5, and 8,
I think it was one of those places in the technology evolution
stars aligned.
where no, it's not that the stars aligned, but the user interface design people actually had free reign on how the application and the entire system is going to look like. So it was a unified effort on trying to do something correctly,
Exactly what obviously VMware does.
and then Microsoft blew it up basically. But what they did is that they did the Microsoft thing. So they did. We have different groups that are doing different things. We are not going to align the interface on the Windows Server with the Windows desktop. I'm
Oh,
completely
they
with
did,
this.
and that's the worst part.
Yeah, yes,
Or
and then they
semi-did.
decided they're going to do it, and then people said, "Okay, you are completely insane now," and then they decided they're not going to do it, so they changed the Windows Server in the interface. Then they changed the Windows 8 to Windows 8.1, and then the Windows 10 happened, and so on and so on and so on. But this is one of those things when things could have gone differently. But let's now finish this tangent and go back to the thing that we are talking about, the updates.
Okay.
So let's draw a line here. Are you okay with the updates, the security updates?
Yes.
When they should be updated?
As long as they don't reboot the machine as soon as possible.
Is it okay for a vendor to say this is a critical 0-day update, it needs to reboot your machine? For example, 40. Which is an extreme case, but they had a few of those.
Still, I'm still of the same opinion that no update, reboot after anything should happen without your approval.
I'm fine with this, but should there be an update that is going to say to you, or you are going to define it by saying that it shouldn't self reboot or self update, but unless you do something, it is going to do the precise same thing in 48 hours of the update. To give you some time to actually do something. Because the 0 days for the 40 were of the highest possible level. You could get direct remote control over the 40 firewall if the SSL was turned on.
Yeah.
And a lot of customers had that turned on. So this is one of those updates that I want to apply almost without any reminder that I need to wait. Okay, I know it's inconvenient if you have hundreds of people connected to the VPN, but at the same time, I think that the cost-benefit analysis here is something that should be taken into consideration. So, are we okay with automatically rebooting on 0-day problems?
No.
So then we are not okay with rebooting on any other security problem.
By extension.
Okay, I think that 0 days should be rebooted automatically. You should be able to define a time when you have the least problems with the auto reboot. You should be given a prompt that is going to warn you before it gets auto rebooted, and then it should auto reboot. So I should be able to say my 40. If everything if I don't stop the system, it's going to reboot in 4 o'clock in the morning. I know that this is a specific case, but because there are people who cannot afford to reboot even in the 4 o'clock in the morning because they have remote workers, and I had a couple of clients like this. So there is simply no way to define morning or the evening because you have workers that are connected all
Follow
over
the sun. Yeah.
Yes, they're following the sun. So basically, you don't care about the time because everybody is working at any particular point in time.
For me, automatic reboot of any device or OS is no. Schedule it. Yes. Yeah, that's okay. As long if I have the capability to say I want the update to happen at 4 in the morning, I will be ticked off, but still okay with that. That's my approach because our experiences in terms of the environments that we work with are different. We only mentioned this in a couple of episodes. The people that I usually have to work with in terms of the systems maintenance and whatnot are all exclusively enterprise companies. You know,
Yes.
you are much more, let's say, experience rich in SMEs than me nowadays, at least.
Yes, but the thing that is bothering me sometimes when I'm scheduling the update is another thing. All updates and all reboots are not created equal.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to be online when the reboot happens because
I always want to be online when the reboot happens.
yes. So having a rescheduled reboot that is going to regularly happen during the night or whatever, basically is a case of scheduling a catastrophe and then waiting for it to happen.
That's why God invented snapshots on virtual machines.
Yes, if you have virtual machines.
Yeah, correct.
But if your nodes break down and you have a problem with storage, then you are up the creek.
Yeah.
So this is one of those things that when I want to be there when it happens, so I'm going to schedule it for 6 o'clock in the morning, because it tends to be that people who are doing IT are not awake in 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning, unless they are completely insane. And then yes and no.
For the past week, I've been sleeping really badly because I also had a cold. So this week, I woke up every day before 5 a.m. Every day. But yeah, that's an exception. I completely agree with you.
So scheduling something for early in the morning and then getting up before it, it's completely fine with me. But I want to be awake when the update happens.
Yeah, that's where I have a completely opposite approach. I do it in the evening always. So I schedule things at 11 p.m. I always do updates manually. I don't allow any kind of automatic updates to happen as much as it's possible, depending on the corporate policies. And oftentimes I will delay the updates by weeks because first and foremost, these updates that come out nowadays, they're not necessarily all that quality tested. You know that, I know that, so it's not much of a secret. I don't want to beta test this, so I usually delay by, let's say, three weeks or so. And I had the same discussion with my friend that works for one of my customers that you know. He asked me, when are you going to do some updates? It's been 2 months. And I said, as soon as I get a real sense that the latest raft of updates will not crash all of my virtual machines that I'm maintaining for you, which is what has been happening in server 22 to 19.
Okay, but this is one of those things that where
no, actually this happened this year already,
So-
with
so-
Windows
but you-
with VMware based environments and Windows VMs. UEFI machines couldn't boot anymore after updates, so this is not the first time.
yes, but the thing is that some of those things are you are more or less you are going to be a beta tester, even an alpha tester. So the only way to solve this is to just divide people into groups and then have a test group that you are going to push the updates to.
Are we testing medicine or are we working in IT?
Yes, but unfortunately, I think that the paperwork required for medicine testing is much more strict than the working in IT.
Unfortunately, I think it's fortunately.
I'm not completely sure, but it's much easier to just find a group of users that are not going to be too pissed off on you when you apply the updates, then push the updates to their computers, then wait what is going to happen. So wait for the cloud to settle and then push the updates to everybody else. But this is one of those things when we are dealing with users. I'm just right now considering updates because for me, if something is purposely a feature update, I couldn't care less.
Mm-hmm.
But if something is a security update, I want to update the system. And what Microsoft is doing is they are bundling the updates together. So they're saying it's a update rollup. So they are bundling the things that I don't want to see with the things that I want to see into one big update that is going to take forever to update.
Okay, can I interject now with
Yes.
lever number 2? You are aware of at least one of the things which I think we both found both hilarious and very disappointing about the Windows endless reboot function after update.
Yes.
That you saw on my HP Z420. what happened there was it was Windows 8.1 actually that I commented on positively, let's say 10, 15, 20 minutes ago. There was some kind of a, let's say, feature update that was bundled in a cumulative update or whatever they were called those days. And every time that update was applied, my machine would go into recovery mode. Then I would log in. I would go back to previous system restore point. I would deinstall the update, and then I would work with it for the next month, and then it would happen again, and we would go in this endless circle. Whichever type of update that was, and there were security updates there present, that definitely didn't work for me. But that's actually the less annoying story than the one that I'm going to tell you now about. This is a little bit before your time. Hence the reason why, at least in our line of work, I think that you're going to find this to be agreeable in terms of what I'm about to say. So years ago, we had Intune in our company. We had Intune agent managing our PCs. Okay. I have absolutely nothing against Intune, just so you know. So that's not the discussion. But the way in which it worked back then was that it was automatically deployed by the IT department via group policy. There was no documented procedure about removing the IT agent. You had to do it manually, hacking the registry and whatnot, which I was able to do after many, many months of trying. And as a result of this, when your computer was connected to, let's say, the environment that was managed by Intune, you had even less control of the reboots and updates. One of the results of that, back then, we are talking about the time when you were still our graduate student. Actually, you were sitting in at the course that I'm about to talk about, which was about redundancy, our graduate level course. So I was in my office. It was something like 6 or 7 p.m. And I was just going through the process of creating a lab for next week, which was about SQL high availability. I know that you know that document because it's 100 pages long and it has roughly 70 screenshots. Okay. So on my Windows 8.1 PC, I had VMware Workstation. I had the domain controller, the file server, and 2 SQLs running on it because it was a workstation machine with a lot of memory, and thankfully the corporate bought me SSD. So basically I was creating the text and the screenshots and the scenario, and basically I did a complete description of how the lab should work and what is the expected end result. Of course, these sorts of situations, you don't just give it to the students to work on them by themselves, because never in the history of mankind is anybody going to figure that out all by himself or herself. So I was roughly 2/3 there, your favorite term. Roughly 2/3 of the way done with the lab. And luckily I saved the document. I had autosave local on disk back then. It wasn't tied to OneDrive or whatnot. So the document with the lab was saved. And I left the 4 VMs turned on, did Windows L, locked the terminal on locked the machine, went out to get myself something from the store, came back, and my machine was rebooted. And as a side effect of that, the beautiful side effect of that, because the virtual machines were powered on when that happened, basically all 4 of my virtual machines crashed. And okay, it was partially my fault because I should have done shoulda, woulda, coulda, but I should have done a snapshot on the VMs before I left and probably shut them down. But never in a million years I thought that what happened is going to happen. So I came back, my 4 VMs were down. Luckily, again, I had the lab document. So I had to redeploy the virtual machines, redeploy the domain controller, join the whole stack of machines to domain. Then I did a snapshot and whatnot. So I wasted additional 2 hours of my life to do that once again. And it was already 9 or 10 p.m. by the time I was ready for the last third of the coursework, of the lab work that I wanted to do and screenshot and document so that my students can have a normal experience of doing that lab. This was because of Intune. And after that, I was like, you are not going to live another week on my computer to Intune. And I've spent the better part of that week, or during working hours, off hours, whatever, trying to figure out how to destroy that stupid agent, which I was, at the end of the day, I was able to do. And after that, never had that problem. But it is a healthy reminder that sometimes when you leave these things in the hands of whatever IT system is trying to manage it, is it Intune, is it SCCM, is it something else, things will eventually go bad.
I know what your problem is. Your problem is that you are not following Microsoft's advice.
Okay.
Because you are working outside the working hours. Microsoft strictly designed the working hours to be 8 hours per day, and then they can reboot whenever they want outside of those working hours.
I'm going to slap you in the face.
Yes, but I wanted to get this kind of reaction because this is what got me raging. Microsoft decided you cannot schedule a reboot that is going to be stopped because they want to reboot the computer, and you can only say that you're going to work exactly 8 hours per day, and your working hours can shift, but they cannot be non-continuous. So you cannot sit at your computer and work, because what you actually did, you were working outside the working hours, and then by locking it, you said that you are no longer active. And this is the trigger for the update.
I don't care.
But this is one of those things that makes me mad to unimaginable extents. Because Microsoft is dictating not only how I should apply the updates, but how I should behave. Because if I stand away from my computer, they're going to sneakily behind my back and reboot it.
That's what happened to me. Yeah, wasting 2 hours to redeploy everything, which is, again, I will fully admit, partially my fault, was not the best evening.
But it wasn't your fault. The problem is that the computer should be a tool.
Oh, I agree.
I don't see my car deciding to not work during 2 hours in a work day because
it wants to update.
It needs to do something.
Yeah, it's a tool. Yeah, that's cool.
And the other thing is that your car is doing something and your computer is doing something. This is the relevant part. I want to know how this thing is going to last. Remember the updates when it says it is only going to, just wait for a minute or wait for the updates to finish. And then it gets around, the little spinny thing gets around and it says, 70%, 80%, 90%. Then it reboots again. Then it starts again.
And then it reboots again?
Yes. And then you don't know how many reboots you're waiting for and what is the amount of time you're going to waste. Because if the update on the older servers, the updates could last hours. So I had a client when we were. This is a fun story. We were at the client on a Christmas morning, because the idea was that the client wasn't working during Christmas, and this is the only downtime that they could afford. And we decided we were going to do the update because we had to do the update for the hardware, basically. We had to switch some SCSI controllers. And what we did, we scheduled the update for 7 o'clock in the Christmas morning. So completely dead time of the day. Nobody's working on Christmas morning, unless they actually need to.
Unless it's us, yeah.
Yes, okay. So I had to go there. I was there with the vendor. I was there with the local IT guy. I was there with a couple of management people, and we went there to install the controller into the server. And the local IT guy said that he's going to down the computer, so he's going to shut down the computer, and then we are going to change the controller, and then we are going to reconfigure the server so that we can continue working. It was 7 o'clock. He clicked shutdown. He didn't pay attention, and he said shutdown and update. It took the server 1 hour and 45 minutes to go back up. So we were there staring at the screen. There was no idea how much this is going to last. The bar kept creeping slowly. And then we decided that one of us is going to stand guard near the server, and the rest of us are going to just waste time somewhere else. But there was nowhere else to waste the time because it was Christmas morning. Nothing is working on Christmas morning, so you cannot even go for a coffee. So we were just stuck.
It happened to me 3 or 4 times with the same company that
The funny
discussing.
thing, sorry to interrupt you, but the funny thing was that the controller wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
So they swapped the controller wasn't working, they swapped it again to the older one, and then we just reset
course.
and nothing changed.
Mhm. I remember the good old days of having the first generation of that IT infrastructure that I took over 10 15 years ago, whatever it was, 2000, server 2003, domain controller, file server, exchange, everything on it. When I did updates, it was an experience to behold. Yeah, and I had more than a few experiences like that afterwards, which, yeah, it's not fun. And actually, more to your point, changing controllers. Here's a reason, and a very good one, why you want to have virtualization and not physical machines, of course.
It was way back then when
Yeah,
the
I know, just
virtualization
saying.
itself was something that wasn't feasible. And to be completely honest, this controller was in a machine that was supposed to be a file server. So it wouldn't be virtualization wouldn't be viable in this particular usage case. What could be viable was doing some sort of a redundant file server, so that you don't care if a node goes down, but this was beyond the reach of the IT there.
Okay, and it was obviously years ago, so maybe there wasn't a stable feature that enables you to do that either way. So that will also be something that might happen. Yeah.
Okay.
You know, the time that we spent talking about Windows, I think it's only fair that we start coughing like crazy, and
Yes.
after that talking about the same mess that Linux is making out of itself now.
I think that Linux has its own set of problems, but with the updates, I think one of the biggest problems with Linux is that it works too well. I want to point to a thing that bothers me a lot, and this is that having a computer running Linux and having an uptime of multiple years is completely normal.
Yeah.
If you don't touch it, and if the hardware is more or less okay, you are not going to have any problems, except the security. And this is going to be a big problem if it becomes a problem.
Okay.
But the problem is that people are not used to it. Dobro tosta. Okay. So you're going to have a big problem with security. And this is one of those things where people, because the updates are so, they are easy to apply, but sometimes they require reboot, especially the kernel update. People are avoiding updates, and they grow used to having a Linux running all the time. They forget to update it. And I don't know the number of machines that I have seen in my life that were running for years that were enormously out of date, sometimes by a few versions of the system, and they were running completely correctly. So they created a lot more problems for me when I tried to update them, because suddenly I realized that I'm not only going to update them, I'm going to basically completely reconfigure the entire system that is on it. For example, I was skipping postfix, or I was skipping PHP versions, not by one, but by 2 or 3 or 4. So I basically did complete reconfiguration of everything when I needed to update. So it took a lot of time to perform the update, and this happens a lot with Linux. And this is one of those things. I know that it should be updated. I wholeheartedly recommend something like Radar or any other solution for Linux. If you don't have the money to invest in more advanced solutions, Radar is completely okay. It's free. It's open source. It enables you to monitor compliance on your machines, so that you can actually have a ballpoint figure of how many machines do you need to update and when the update time has come. But this is Linux. Linux, as they say, your mileage may vary, and it may vary by a long range. So,
Okay. Well, there's one other thing that IT involved around, which is you cannot treat the servers that we are discussing and the services that we are discussing as standalone beings, because they are published to internet via some kind of a concept.
yes,
That's where your FortiGate and my FortiGate comes into play.
yes,
But there are other mechanisms that can be used to further bolster the level of security. And this is what people are missing. Nowadays we are living in the era of everything needs to be a web application. That's what it is. And then that means that it needs to be HTTPS published. How? That's the first question. Is it just a port forward via firewall? Or is there any kind of traffic inspection? Is it a port forward via firewall, or is it a load balancer? Is there any kind of traffic inspection, and how it's done? You could get away with a lot of different security threats running on your actual applications if they are situated behind a good security system as well. Which I'm not saying that that's a solution. Of course, it's not. But it's something that does give you a little bit of a peace of mind in terms of not having to rush to the updates as soon as they're out, because in IT, in enterprise IT, you just don't do that.
In enterprise IT, you sometimes just cannot update things. Sometimes you need to put your application, however bad it is, behind a couple of apps or whatever, and then or proxies or however it is they're called, and pray that you are not going to have a security issue because you just cannot update the application.
We have some of those as well. We have one of the applications that we're running in our company, which is based around old .NET. And if I do Windows updates on that machine, I cannot afford to do Windows updates on those. Or if I do, if those are non.NET updates, usually it's okay. But I still snapshot the VM before I do updates. And I rarely do them, maybe twice a year, because it's a completely internal machine with some of the things that we need, but we just don't use it in a different manner, which again is not the best way. And making people who make decisions about software development aware of the fact and conscious about the fact that the application needs to be rewritten in some kind of a new platform and compatible with latest version of .NET or something is not easy, which in Linux terms, same thing as with PHP, no difference whatsoever.
Okay, but what you can do
although
in Linux,
PHP is a little bit more compatible version to version, yeah.
It didn't used to. But the thing with PHP is specific because in Linux what you can do is you can isolate it. Since people realize that PHP is going to create a lot of problems for a lot of people, there are proven solutions that enable you to install multiple versions of PHP and then specifically run an application on a particular version of PHP, so you can isolate it in a sandbox without affecting the entire system. And this is one of those things where Linux excels. Because what you can do, you can actually isolate the packages and you can make sure that the package is not going to break.
Snap me.
Yes, this is one of the ideas. The other idea is that you can actually have a framework that enables you to run different applications on different PHP versions, and you can have a drop-down menu for the programmer, so the programmer can choose which version he wants the application to run on, so that he can actually test it. So he can upgrade and downgrade his own application on the web server without your involvement. And this is one of those things where Linux is the king, and this is one of the reasons why Linux is in all so pervasive, so pervasive in all the servers. But what you just mentioned is one of the other things.
Layered security,
onion layers of security are something that always needs to be mentioned. We shouldn't be relying on updates for Windows Server, because nobody in their right mind is going to expose this Windows Server directly to the internet. You know that, everybody knows that. So you're going to have
and yet there are millions of them exposed to the internet.
Yes, because the Microsoft is quietly, because they don't have a solution for it, they're quietly saying you could just connect this network adapter to the internet. And the internet should be one port of the router or one port of the preferably IDS supported
IDS, IPS, firewall, load balancer, and everything in one. Yeah.
Yes. So something that should be able to filter the traffic to the server, but it sometimes doesn't happen. Sometimes people don't have resources for it. Although, to be completely honest, even putting a small router like MikroTik is going to do immense job of security just by blocking ports. So just by blocking every packet of traffic that is not designed to pass into the internal system, so even using something as simple as this is going to do a lot of towards the security of the entire system. And you should be aware of all the different things that you need to do. You should be aware of the idea of the layered security, and then the updates don't matter so much.
They definitely matter less if you approach the idea of security in a good way, and if you have some IDS, IPS methodologies and whatnot, it's going to be easier, definitely. No argue there. If you have centralized logging, some kind of a system that shifts through the logs, sends you some warnings, whatnot. There are many systems like that. Splunks, Sumo Logics of the world. Even Microsoft has Sentinel in Azure and many other utilities that can really be very helpful for that. Yeah, I know. It's all good. I understand. That's actually where cloud methodologies can be very helpful as well, although very expensive.
The problem is the expense. When people are choosing, especially firewalls, people tend to stick to the free solutions because there are a lot of free solutions, or I wouldn't say free, but I would say cheap solutions on the market.
Okay.
So all the PF senses and all the OPN senses and so on the market are either cheap or extremely or completely free, and this makes them something that people can deploy, but a lot of times people don't understand how to deploy those, and then they create their own set of problems. But this is a set of topics for another episode.
Okay, I agree. I think we can wrap this up.
Let's wrap this thing up and say, so no reboots.
No reboots. Unless you say so.
No feature updates.
No feature updates whatsoever.
And when does that leaves us?
Where? Right at the beginning. We want to go back to the old school IT where we were treated as people who know what the hell they're doing, instead of being treated like people who have no IT intelligence while doing this job for many years.
Let me just create a little bit of topic to wrap this thing up. That's going to take probably 10 minutes or so to finish. What do you think about using, you mentioned cloud applications. Mm-hmm. The cloud applications have this particular thing that they do, and this is that they can get updated without you knowing it.
Okay.
What do you think about updates that are not even announced? So, for example, you're using a web application for something. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Let's not mention names. Let's say that you are using.
Let's say WordPress. Who cares?
WordPress is not a good.
Yeah, that's why I selected it.
No. But it's not a good example, because what it does is it does what you want it to do. So it is going to get if you update it, it is going to look more or less the same, or it's going to break. Mm-hmm. What I'm mentioning are applications like, I don't know, OVA, Outlook web application, that can sometimes change without you expecting it. And in this particular moment in time, you want your mail, you don't want to learn how the interface is going to look like. I'm thinking about when Gmail changed, when Outlook changed on the internet, when the OVA changed, when Facebook changed.
OVA actually is maybe a bad example, because unless you're talking about Outlook Anywhere, which is another web application that you can read email on Exchange from, it's a different application. It's a little bit of a different system. It's pretty consistent, but everything else you said is correct.
Yes, because you cannot influence the updates to Gmail.
Yeah, I know.
For example, I liked Inbox of the Inbox application for the Gmail, and they completely they basically retired it and put some of the functions into the Gmail, and I don't like the direction where the Gmail is heading to right now. But I have no influence over this. What do you think about those updates? Because they don't directly involve you. There is no downtime, but they could be considered a problem, because sometimes they cause you downtime because you don't know how to do something.
I mean, Azure Portal is a perfect example of that.
Which one of them?
No. The Azure Portal.
Yes, okay.
I know what you wanted to say, but Azure Portal. They sometimes just add 20 different features. You don't know where everything is. Yesterday, and actually I work in Azure almost every day, because, maintenance work. Yesterday, when I was doing some demos for our students on the graduate program, I was quite surprised to see some new information popping up at certain places where I never seen them before. But I would actually answer your question in two different ways. If you're talking about the external services like Gmail, Outlook 360, Office 365, whatnot, nothing I can do about that. I can just and go on. But that's not going to work for a lot of users because the average users might get ticked off because
Yes.
something changed, and that should be understandable. And we will have to just help them with that. It's a different thing if we're talking about the applications that we provide. For example, let's say that we do container-based applications in whatever cloud you want for the purpose of, let's say those are web applications that our company is running, so our users are connecting to that. Then this is a different approach because we would probably do that via some kind of orchestrated automated procedure like Kubernetes or OpenShift or Tanzu or something like that. And then you actually can schedule and work with the orchestrated process that would exchange the containers one by one.
Yes, okay.
Which is where the idea of IT should be going. I'm not talking about everything needs to be container. No, but completely the opposite. But the procedure that I described is a good one, because it enables you to both go to sleep, first test, does the new version work? Then go to sleep and schedule, let's say OpenShift to do a complete, or Kubernetes to do a complete replacement of all of the containers that were running yesterday while doing basic maintenance work.
You realize that you're basically describing Apache reload.
Yeah.
An
I like
Apache reload command, which was done 20 or 30 years ago, where you could actually tell the Apache service to not break the connections that it currently has, the sessions it currently has, but to use the new configuration, the new sessions that are currently being opened.
Correct.
So
hopping, as we call it, kill minus hop.
So basically what it enabled you to do is to gradually introduce the new configuration without breaking existing sessions.
Of course.
So people didn't realize what is going to happen, what is happening with the application server.
As I said, many of the things that we are using now are repackaged knowledge that we have from decades ago.
So let's pack this thing up.
Let's pack it up.
As knowledge and revisit this in 20 years. I'm Yasmin, he's Vedran. This was That IT Show, and see you in the next episode.
Bye-bye.
Bye.